Welcome, podcast listeners and podcast watchers. For those who are joining on YouTube, welcome to today's podcast, where we're going to be talking about big AV mistakes. And for that, I'm joined by Scott Leah. Scott, welcome to your inaugural podcast.
To be part of the show.
Yeah, welcome. So for the audience that don't know much about you or don't know anything about you, so they're not friends and family who are going to like, comment, and subscribe, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Scott Leah, Head of Audio Visual for Centrino Technologies. I've been here since the start of the year. Prior to joining the wonderful family over here, I guess I've had a bit of a career in AV and in technology through multiple various things. And once upon a time, had a lot of fun doing a not-so-professional job with live sound and audio.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to put a ban on both of us for saying COVID past this point. But since that thing that happened a couple of years ago, how much has that impacted your world?
I think it's impacted a lot. We've probably gone pre a particular event. We were seeing a lot of customers setting up their environments with lots of very small meeting rooms and lots of larger, densely packed rooms, to starting to do things where we might be doing some medium-sized spaces, but everyone sits a little bit further apart. So part of that, I think, has definitely changed with the technology that's coming out. We've had some really cool stuff even announced this week at Infocom over in the States. So it's allowing us to build some better environments and make things a lot more interactive.
So let's assume, you're an executive or you're in operations or finance. Mm-hmm. You've gone out to, maybe one of your suppliers, or you've gone out to another organization, and you've seen this great, amazing tech that's in their office. It's easy to get caught up into the latest flashy thing. So how about we just give them some stuff that they can potentially work with, or some processes that they could maybe take to be able to, maybe decide whether or not they make that investment.
It's probably getting to that point and then almost stopping. Like, going and seeing the technology is great, gives you an idea of what's possible. But I really think we need to work with them to sort of bring it back, and what are they actually trying? What's the problem they're trying to fix? Do we have a room that's got horrible acoustics? If it's a room that you walk in, you've got an echo, you can't hear things clearly, we could put hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in there, but we can't always beat physics. So if the room's got not great acoustics or not great light, doesn't matter how much money we spend on the equipment, they may not be able to get the best out of it. Do we need video conferencing? Do we need an interactive screen? Do we need voice reinforcement? And then as we go through that, is it a room that's 4 glass walls? Maybe we need to put some soft paintings or some rugs or some treatment in there so that they can actually use the space. How are the staff going to use it? Even down to what video conferencing platform do we use? Are we a Zoom house? Are we a Teams house? Once upon a time, going back to the old days, you bought the hardware that was only for what you were using.
Yeah.
Now we're all in this really good space through direct guest join, where right now this room we're in is a Teams room. But if I've got a WebEx or a Zoom invite, I can simply forward that meeting invite to the room and I can join. Vice versa, if we're a Zoom house, you forward the meeting from the other platforms to the room, and instead of me having to come in, unplug 50 cables to try and get a meeting running, we can just hit start off the controller and away they go.
What are some stories that you can share that around your experience around maybe taking something that's quite complex but getting the outcome to simplifying it down and giving a much better user experience?
Definitely. I think with a lot of the technology we now talk to our customers about, it's to fix that problem where they've had a screen, they've had some sort of legacy video bar underneath that doesn't give great audio. They might have a dock on the table and they have to bring their laptop in, plug in the dock. They go to start a meeting and, the audio's coming on my laptop, not the screen, because they haven't changed that setting. If we flip that on its head and start putting in some sort of more fit-for-purpose rooms, we can have a screen, we can have a camera bar or an audio system that suits the room size. We have a nice cleaning controller on the table or the wall. If I need to walk in and start a meeting, I can bring my laptop in, hit meeting join from the room, everything lights up and starts. And that's probably something that is really important to work through right from the start of what is the use case for the room.
Yeah. I'm going to say something, or be so bold as to challenge some of the listeners out here right now to say that if you're in an office space that's got, half a dozen meeting rooms, I would challenge you to say, find me a good reason why not every single one of those rooms should not be enabled for some sort of meeting,
100%.
like a virtual meeting or a collaboration space that can be brought into virtual.
I think one of the things that we use here really well, and I'm starting to see a lot more use with organisations, is scheduling panels outside of rooms. Having the ability to walk down a corridor, even stick your head down the side and go, oh, yep, out of the 5 rooms that are here, 3 are green, they're all free. 2 are red. Oh, they're in use.
Doesn't help the colourblind people, but yes, I take your point. Yeah,
we can change the colours to suit if needed.
Blue and yellow,
Correct.
guys. Blue and yellow.
Yep. But being able to walk up and book a reservation for that room, it gets popped into the calendar. Everyone else knows that someone's already booked that room. Depending on the workspace reservation, other technologies we can add in, I can walk up to a room and go, oh, this one's in use. I need to book another room. Do it from that same panel, and even have a map pop up telling me how to get to that other room.
And we're not talking
side.
sheep stations worth of dollar investment here, right?
A lot of this stuff is already in the platforms the customers are using. It just needs to be turned on. And that's something we can certainly work with from a consultancy point to be able to say, this is how we can take what you've already invested in and allow you to maximise your usage with it.
Yeah. Look, I would say, like, from CT's perspective, we've got 5 meeting rooms here in our office. Every single one of them is enabled for some sort of meeting that can be happening with third parties as well. We've got, not only do we use those display screens for us to be able to put up presentations, but we're also using it for our Teams calls as well.
Digital signage.
Digital signage. We've got, from a demonstration perspective, we use it for our own existing customers. Customers coming into our environments and are sort of impressed with how easy it is to use. Like, this tech, we've been using it now for a couple of years, so it's not new to us. For a lot of organizations out there, they may feel like that they may be too big of a leap for them to make. What are some, I suppose, easy wins for them to go and sort of, if you've only got a budget of X and Y, what are some easy wins that you'd be suggesting for them?
Some of probably the easiest wins for space like that, like if you've got a room that has a screen in there at the moment and you're not ready to do a full revamp, an Android collaboration bar. So a lot of the solutions we work with, they'll have a small, medium, large conferencing bar that we can put in. It's got cameras, it's got microphones, it's got speakers, and they will typically run Teams or Zoom on board as a room appliance. And some of the better ones also run in a bring your own device mode. So I could set this space up here for a meeting room. We're not a fully Teams house, so we're not using Teams rooms or we're not using Zoom rooms, but I walk in, I can plug one cable or adapter into my laptop, and then my laptop takes over the stuff that's in the room.
Yeah.
And doing that sort of, it can be that first step towards doing full room solutions without the need for some of the larger investment or the larger additions to that space.
What's your view on the all-in-one units?
There's some great devices out there. The trouble is that all-in-one doesn't fit everybody.
And the big thing I think with those ones as well is that from an asset management perspective, where the hell did we put that thing? So I probably should explain. We're talking about the ones on the trolleys, right?
Units? Yeah. I guess it comes back to when we start looking at this, what are we actually trying to achieve and set up? Who are we trying to set up and make that technology accessible for? How are we connecting is probably another big thing to consider. Like, is it an environment that we're purely wireless? We're going to need power. We want to have data. How else do we need to plug in? And I guess the bigger piece that I see gets missed more often than not is how are we managing those assets over the long term? How are we managing security, updates, support? And that's where CT as a partner can certainly come in and work well in step.
It's a good point because, I don't want to talk about too much about what CT does in this space, and I know you can always come and reach out to Scott and get further information. But is the management overhead of AV, is that something that people need to be factoring as part of the budgets, or is
it should be? Right. It should be, because the biggest pain point with meeting room systems is when they don't work, and it might be something as simple as the start of July. Microsoft's making changes to all the Teams Room licensing. Anyone that was on the previous generation of Teams Room Standard or Premium, or had been trying to dodge the bullet and use a user license on a meeting room, come July 1, they all get logged out. Right. Everyone has to move to the new licenses that were released in November last year for Teams Room Basic or Teams Room Pro. Otherwise, their devices can get logged out. And I guarantee, unfortunately, there is going to be a lot of people that unwittingly get locked out of their rooms come July 1 because they haven't known to keep an eye on that, or they haven't had somebody help manage that.
Right.
From a hardware perspective, as the new software updates and new releases come out, how are they making sure that their technology is kept up to date from a security and an application aspect?
So if someone listening to this right now is unsure as to whether or not they have got this license, what can they go and do to go and work it out?
If they've got access to their 365 admin portal, they can jump in there, access their rooms and their resources, and it will tell them what licensing is applied. It should also show them a nice big, this license must be changed by July 1 notification. If you walk into a room on the controllers and access the settings, it'll also pop up and tell them what sort of license type is there.
What are some fails that you've seen over your years?
I think the biggest one, and I do sometimes get caught up by this one myself, is getting shiny object syndrome. Like going, oh, this technology looks great, I need to have it. What am I actually going to do with it? We get spaces that get overly complex control systems that no one knows how to use.
Yeah.
Or we've put in a whole bunch of equipment into a space that nobody then uses because it's either too complex or they just didn't actually need it in the first place.
Yeah.
8K screens, and some of my vendors might hate me saying this, but 8K screens, no one makes content in 8K. We're barely getting 4K content for a lot of things.
Yeah.
So there's some really pretty tech that's probably overkill for what most people actually need for their functional requirements.
Yeah. So if you're going to say, if a customer's got a certain budget and they had to over invest in a particular part of the technology, what would be your recommendation?
Infrastructure is probably a big one.
Okay, define that for us.
Yep. So if we are putting in a new build, something I work with a lot of our customers on, of making sure we've got additional data or additional power in place, because it's so much easier to get that stuff running before walls are closed up. If we start setting up spaces, and I guess one we find with a lot of people we talk to is they'll go to build a new building or they'll be doing a new fit out, and AV just gets pushed as an item that gets subcontracted out by the builders. That can work well, but what's probably better is working with the trusted advisor, having someone come in, do a bit of consultation, find out what your root needs are, so that when they go to deploy it actually meets their requirements.
Yeah.
I talk to schools weekly that have had multiple campuses set up. All the works have been done in isolation. They've got 6 or 7 different types of technology potentially on the one campus because different buildings were fitted out at a completely different time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's frustrating.
It makes it hard to manage, and it makes it really hard for people going from one site to another.
Yeah.
To know how to use it.
And what are some of the cash burn pitfalls?
I think it's definitely that unused tech. There's definitely things that can be said for picking your timing of the year, of when new product releases versus old product releases come out.
Yeah.
Trying to get things in there that actually work. Stock is still more of an issue for some of us than I think we'd like, even though we're past that event that caused a lot of stock issues.
Yeah.
There's still some equipment that is taking a little bit longer. So if it's something you're trying to set up very, very quickly, you may find you're either having to pay a premium to get the items that you want, or you may get stuck waiting a little bit longer to be able to get the right items in there to achieve it.
I feel like the modern IT administrator, so for those organisations that don't have a managed service provider, do you think they're equipped to be able to help administer rooms now, or is it sort of like more of a specialised person that you would need to be able to look after that space?
It can work both ways, and I think there's a lot of AV where it used to be considered that it had to be completely separate from the network. Most of that now runs cleanly on the network.
Yeah.
So it comes down to working with those IT administrators and sort of saying, hey, here's how we can help skill you up and enable you, or here's what we need in order for this to coexist with other traffic on the network.
And so talk me through some of the more like bigger spaces that you work in now. Like I've seen some of the work that we're starting to look at. It's auditorium style type pieces of work. Talk us through some of the more complicated installs that you've done.
Some of the I like them because I find them challenging and they're a bit chunkier to get into. Normal meeting rooms are quite easy and for most spaces are quick and simple and cost effective setup. If we've got, let's call them premium or priority spaces that we want to be able to set up, I've got one customer that we're configuring right now. They've got a 30-person boardroom. We have an 85-inch screen at one end of the table. A 65-inch would be behind you and behind me. You and I talk to each other across the table like this. Behind you, there is a screen where I see the other people on the call. We have a pair of cameras above that. the same is repeated behind me, and those cameras focus on the people in the room. So where that changes from the previous situation of, screen and the cameras at the front, we all sit and face the front, and I'm not really talking to you. You and I have a natural conversation, but the people on the far end of the call get that exact same experience. So it helps bring those remote workers in and make everyone feel a lot more inclusive in the call.
Okay.
We go to some of the other, I guess the bigger spaces. We're looking at some works with people for auditoriums where we're doing projectors, multiple screens, speakers, microphones, all the fun stuff. I actually really like building background music systems for our customers where they might have a reception or a breakout kitchen area, and we'll give them the ability to walk in with a mobile phone, pair via Bluetooth, and play their own music or audio through the space. Really important thing with all of this is the security and how we want to lock down and manage it. For that sort of audio thing, we want to give reception or someone inside control to override things. Digital signage is always a fun one from a security aspect. No one wants to be that site that had 100 screens playing not very safe for work content at peak hour. And it's something that can be quite easily configured by a little bit of smart work around how you lock things down, how you put administrative controls on it, so that you don't end up being the next one on the news who's been playing things that they shouldn't.
How far away are we at CT from being able to walk into our boardroom and put on some Apple lenses and having a VR, AR meeting experience?
It's coming, and it is something that is frequently talked about. I guess it's how do we define and how do we set that experience up? If I'm sitting at a table with VR goggles on, everyone's going to have to be on avatars because you want the camera picking me up with my goggles on the face?
I'm sure there's some CGI improvement there for all of us that we could benefit from.
Oh, I think have you been on a call with anyone recently with the freaky eyes that don't look away from you?
No, I haven't done that yet.
So NVIDIA have brought out this fantastic software that actually does CGI eyes over the top of you.
Right, okay.
So I can look over here, but my eyes continually track on you.
Yeah,
so
right.
when your boss thinks, he must always be paying attention on the call, they might just have a really clever filter running.
Yeah, right. That's interesting.
I've seen stuff again this week with avatars where we're getting them in Teams. We've got them in Zoom, even to the point of I can do a video off avatar, and as I talk, the avatar's lips move. If I've got camera on, the eyes move when my eyes move. And it's getting to that next, that meta, that VR stage where you don't always have to be video on, but you can still have a real presence in the meeting.
What's driving that, do you think?
It's user adoption, but I think the avatar stuff feels almost like everyone's sort of going, hey, I kind of want to go back to being able to work from home, and I'm getting a bit of meeting fatigue, but I still need to be seen to be present. So like you and I here, we're in the office, where as we would normally be. If we're at home, who knows if I'm wearing my PJs or my fluffy Uggs or whatever it may be.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Camera.
I'm just trying to think, if I was in a meeting and my team were avatars, I would actually find that to be like, what? This is a joke?
And I think it's something that organisations do need to work through of, what is their minimum standard for meetings?
Yeah.
Does everyone have to be video on? Does everyone have to be in formal attire? And it will come down to the workplaces and how they want to operate.
I can see a benefit for it though, now that I think about something like that in an education setting. So maybe students who are dialing into a presentation or for a tute or something like that, and they like, I want to have my video on or don't want to have my video on.
It can be, but then again, back to your point of how you'd run your Teams meeting, like the teachers want to know that the students are actually paying attention.
Yeah, right.
And if I've just stuck an avatar up, I might be in another room doing something and not paying attention to the session.
Yeah.
So how do we help people engage better with the technology so that they're actually paying attention and present within those meetings?
Yeah, okay, interesting. I look forward to my first facial expression of someone. Please screenshot it when someone rocks up with an avatar. Or like someone with a unicorn or something like that. Okay, so thank you for covering that with us, Scotty. My little golden nuggets that we love to give our listeners. Let's give them a couple of yours, couple of mine. We'll give them a quick win,
Yep.
and a pitfall to avoid. So
Sure.
over to you first.
I think 3 questions that I always try and get everyone to ask as they start on this journey is, what is the problem you're actually trying to solve? Are we trying to do video conferencing, signage? Is it something different? From there, work back. This is the outcome we want to achieve. What technology do we need to help us get there without potentially breaking the bank? And then from there, how are we going to effectively deploy and manage it? They're probably the 3 main things that I'd focus on to have a successful journey. My
quick wins, or my advice to those that may be trying to justify the expense, is just invest the money, because you won't as long as the technology is going to be good, and as long as you get the help to be able to deploy it correctly, get the user training up there, it will not be wasted investment. And making sure that it's a justifiable event. You're not going to be overspending, but enable all of your rooms to be a collaboration space that you can bring in.
And if we're going to do that, try and get everything on a equitable level. There's no point buying the cheapest little webcam that should be on top of a monitor and putting it into a giant room because it was slightly cheaper. The old one, the cheap doesn't always give us the best outcome in the longer run.
I think that's a really good pitfall. So do you have another one?
Shiny objects. Not everything that looks amazing and promises to do the world is going to be the best fit for every space. So take your time to do a bit of a validation of what are we needing, and will that shiny object actually tick all the boxes.
Definitely my pitfall is that standardization piece. Don't try and go if you pick a lane, stick to that lane. If the technology you've chosen is Zoom with Yealink, stick with Zoom and Yealink. If your technology is Crestron with Teams, stick with Crestron with Teams, because you'll just get a much more consistent user experience.
And sticking with a singular technology like that, we do have a lot of ability that if you were to change the platform, we can actually retain that hardware and still do it. It's not the old days of, I bought a such and such hard codec, I can only ever do meetings on that application. Now with most things that we do for room systems, whilst we can standardize the hardware and the setup, if we're Zoom today and Teams tomorrow, it's not that quick of a flick, but the hardware can be reconfigured to use those other platforms. So spending a little bit more or wisely investing the money on the technology will also save you if you were to change the platform in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scotty, for joining us. Thank you, listeners, and thank you, viewers, who are joining us on YouTube. You've gotten some great advice. In my opinion, there should be absolutely no reason why you are not enabling all of your rooms for AV today. And Scotty, how can they get in touch with you?
Yep, so reach out to the team here at CT. We do have some great promos and specials that we are running at the moment that will fit a lot of customers' meeting room needs. So please reach out to us and we'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, and see you next month.